my name is Catherine from Cat's Crafts and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making the April Birthstone soap, which is of course inspired by diamonds. This soap is going to be a gray soap featuring gold and white swirls, a gray frosting, a clear crystal quartz embed, and a carved out diamond inside. I'm really excited to make this soap, so let's get started. We decided to do a voiceover for this video because the audio quality wasn't very good. But to start out, we added our lye water solution to the oils and then blended until just past emulsification. For those of you who don't know what emulsification is, it's basically the forcible mixture of two things that normally don't mix together, like pickles on a peanut butter and jelly, which for some reason my boyfriend loves. We don't want to blend too far past emulsification because we want the batter for this design to be really runny. Once we've reached the right consistency, we're going to pour off a little bit of batter into two smaller containers for our accent colors. Into one container, we're going to pour a small amount of batter, and into the other, we're going to pour a larger amount. Into the container with less batter, we're going to be adding Winter White Mica from Nurture Soap. We're going to add a lot because it's not very pigmented. The next color we're going to be using is Shimmer Gold from Nurture Soap. I chose this and the white to look kind of like little random mineral deposits that you see in regular rocks. For the final color, we're going to be adding Neutral Gray Mica, also from Nurture Soap. I chose this color to be like the base of the rock. I wanted this to take up most of the soap's design. After adding all of the colors to the soap batter, I went ahead and started by mixing them all in by hand. You don't have to do this, but I decided to because I wanted to keep the batter as runny as possible, so I didn't want to stick blend too much. This is also the first time that I was making this design and using this fragrance oil, so I didn't know how well the fragrance oil was going to react. Sometimes the fragrance oil can rice, causing the batter to become very chunky, or accelerate, which causes it to really thicken up very, very fast and make it hard to work with, especially for a swirl like I wanted to do in this design. As I was mixing in these colorants, I decided that they weren't quite what I was looking for in terms of the design that I had originally made, so I chose to add a little bit more of the neutral gray and a little bit more of the winter white mica. As you can see here, I added about 3 more teaspoons of the winter white mica to this little cup, which seems like a lot for such a small amount of soap batter, but in the end it really turned out to be the right color that I was looking for. After that, I gave both of them a quick mix again, and then I was ready to stick blend. Starting with the white and moving towards the gray, I gave each container a mixing with a stick blender just to get all of the leftover clumps out and make sure that the color was really at its best. Though it doesn't make as much of a difference for the gold or the gray, you can really see how stick blending affects the color of the white. It really helps enhance the quality by making sure that all of the titanium dioxide that is in the mica powder gets dispersed evenly. Once the fragrance oil was mixed in, I set everything to the side so that we could start pouring into the molds. The first thing that I did was add the neutral gray all the way up to about halfway. At this point I realized that the batter was a little bit thicker than I had anticipated, and so I was worried about how my drop swirl was going to come out. After filling both about halfway, I moved on to the gold color. I poured the gold from both high and low to try to get it to drop to different levels in the soap. After finishing the white, I added another layer of gold. I noticed that the batter was starting to get pretty thick, so I decided to go ahead and add the rest of the gray onto the soap. As you can see, I kind of had to plop it out because it was getting a little too thick for it to pour. I left a little bit in the container for me to scrape out onto the top after I was finished pouring, and then I went back with the other 2 colors, and as you can see now, it's really thick. I had to really shake out the colors. The white batter at this point started to look a little bit like somebody had melted the Michelin Man, but I was still pretty happy with the design. I tapped both of the molds down pretty firmly on the table several times to help flatten the batter out so that I could add the rest. After tapping down the molds, I scraped out all 3 containers as best as I could to try to get as much of the soap batter as I could into the mold. I didn't want to waste any of it by leaving it in the container. Using my spatula, I started to flatten out the top just so that I could make sure that the soap batter was in every corner of the mold so that there weren't any major bubbles on the side. Because I was worried about the inside of the soap not being as swirled as I wanted, I decided to take this little tool and swirl it all through the soap. Normally you would do something like this with a hanger tool, but I don't have one, so when I need a little something extra, I use this guy. Once both soaps were swirled, I tapped both molds very firmly on the table to try to bang out any of those air pockets that I had just created inside the soap. To finish off the lobes, I decided to go ahead and swirl the tops. This isn't something that you'll see in the final designs, but it's always good to have the practice. Now that the loaf is done, we can move on to the fun part, the frosting. I used an Atico 846 piping tip for this, and I just made the frosting the same color gray as the inside of the soap. Since this is going to take a while, I figure I might tell you guys a little bit about myself since we're here. If you don't want to listen, that's okay, you can just mute me. My name is Catherine, and I'm 20 years old. I'm from Tampa, Florida, and I started making soap last year because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and I needed a new way to express my creativity. The reason that I love soap making so much is because not only am I creating something beautiful with my artwork, but I'm actually creating something that can be used, and I'm creating something that is not really going to be wasted. All of the soap that I make can be used completely, and if I ever mess anything up, I can turn it into a whole new batch of soap and make something beautiful out of it. I currently make all of my soaps, and we film these videos at my grandparents' house in their spare bedroom. They were kind enough to give us the space to use so that we could grow our business. My grandmother herself is a crafter and has been making and selling t-shirt blankets and other crafts for longer than I've been alive. I live with my family and my boyfriend Michael, who is the person to credit for all of these incredible video shots of me making soap. Outside of soap making and video filming, Michael is a firefighter and I am a student. It's really hard to learn how to grow your business when you really have no experience in any kind of business ownership, and it's been really stressful, but I'm so happy to have him here with me to make this journey. I'm sure some of you are probably tired of hearing me talk about myself, but that's okay because we're almost done with the soap now. After I finished this top layer of frosting, I added another little dollop to the top just because I had a lot of extra frosting. Once I finished adding all the frosting, I decided to put a little bit of the shimmer gold mica and some of the super sparkles mica, which you'll see later, on top of the soap, just to give it a little bit of flair. I love this close-up shot because you can really see all of the glitter falling right onto the soap. The Super Sparkles is a very beautiful Enviro glitter from Nurture Soap, and if you use it, you definitely want to make sure your fan is off or it's going to go everywhere. Now that we're finished with the glitter, we can go ahead and add these embeds. The embeds that I used for this soap are clear crystal quartz points that I bought on eBay. I can leave a link in the description for anyone interested. I chose these because obviously it would be way too expensive for me to try to put a giant diamond on every bar of soap. This is the third birthstone design that I've done so far. I also did one for amethyst in February and aquamarine in March, and I really, really love doing birthstone soaps. It's so fun to incorporate the real stones into the design. Once I finished adding the embeds, I went ahead and finished off the soap by spraying both loaves with 99% isopropyl alcohol. I did this to help seal that mica and Enviro glitter in place and to help prevent soda ash. Then all we had to do was wait until the next day so that we could add the beautiful diamond center. About 16 to 18 hours later, we came back to unmold these soaps. Now, normally you would go straight into cutting the soap, but we're going to do something a little different for this bar. Upon unmolding these soaps, I was really happy with how the colors turned out, and I couldn't wait to see what they looked like on the inside later. I laid both soaps on their side with the quartz facing up so that we could move on to the next step. Using a stainless steel spoon, I started to carve out the inside of the soap. I didn't want to carve too close to the edge of the loaf because I was going to be going back in and pouring in melt and pour later. I scooped all of the little bits that I carved out into that little bowl there so that I could save them and use them later for something else. The initial carve was a little difficult because the soap was kind of firm, but after that it was easy for me to go back and carve out anything else that I thought wasn't deep enough later. Once our soap was carved, we were ready for the melt and pour. This is the detergent-free clear melt and pour from Wholesale Supplies Plus, and I added 2 teaspoons of Super Sparkles and Viro Glitter from Nurture Soap. It is so pretty and shiny. It really, really matches my diamond design. I'm so happy with the color. Once I was finished pouring, I went ahead and spritzed the tops of both with rubbing alcohol to pop any bubbles, and then we were ready to let these sit for about an hour and a half so that they could set up enough to cut. Once the melt and pour had firmed up enough for us to cut, I went ahead and lined this up on my multi-bar cutter. I'm moving really, really slow with this because wire cutters and melt and pour notoriously don't get along very well, but it seemed to go okay for me. Once the soap was cut, I took the first one out of the middle so that we could see how the design turned out. Even though it wasn't exactly the drop swirl I planned, I was really, really happy with how this soap turned out. It is so pretty and so shiny. And of course, I couldn't help but show you all of them, so I hope you're as interested in it as I am. Okay everyone, that's it for this video. I'm really happy with how this soap turned out, but for future batches I'm going to be doing an in the pot swirl so that this gold and white is a little more incorporated in the soap. Otherwise, this soap is really beautiful and I can't wait to share it with you guys. I'll see you next time.